Why can't you stop staring at the bulge in my pants, Miss Carter? The words hit Lena like a slap across the face. The conference room went dead silent. 12 executives turned their heads. Her coffee cup trembled, her cheeks burned crimson. And Ronan Moratini, the most dangerous man in Manhattan, just smiled. She wanted to disappear. She wanted to die. Before we go further into this story, please subscribe to our channel, hit the bell, and stay with me until the very end. And drop the name of the city you're watching from in the comments. I want to see how far this story has traveled. Lena Carter had never wanted anything in her life the way she wanted this job. 3 years of sleepless nights at Columbia. 2 unpaid internships that nearly broke her bank account. A mother back in Ohio who'd sold her wedding ring to help cover the deposit on Lena's tiny Brooklyn apartment. Every single sacrifice, every single tear, every single ramen dinner, all of it had been pointing toward this exact morning. Moratini Holdings. The name alone made grown men in finance lower their voices. The 42nd floor of a glass tower on Fifth Avenue. A starting salary that would let Lena finally send her mother real money instead of greeting cards with apologies tucked inside. And she had earned it. At least that's what she believed when she stepped off the elevator at 7:45 that Monday morning, clutching her leather portfolio so tightly her knuckles had gone white. Miss Carter. The receptionist's voice was crisp, practiced, the kind of voice that had been trained never to ask twice. Yes, that's me. Lena straightened her blazer. I'm reporting for orientation. I was told, Mr. Moratini is expecting you in the executive boardroom. Now. Lena blinked. I'm sorry, did you say Mr. Moratini? Personally, I thought I was meeting with the HR director and he changed the schedule this morning. The receptionist didn't look up from her screen. 23rd floor, door at the end of the corridor. Don't keep him waiting. Lena's stomach dropped to her shoes. She had never met Ronan Moratini. Nobody met Ronan Moratini. Not on their first day, not on their first month. The man was a ghost in his own building, a name on letterhead, a signature on checks, a shadow behind frosted glass. Lena walked toward the elevator on autopilot, her heels clicking too loudly against the marble. Just breathe, she whispered to herself. Just breathe, Lena. You earned this. You earned this. But somewhere in the back of her mind, a small voice was already asking the question that would haunt her for weeks to come. Did you, though? Did you really? The boardroom doors were heavier than they looked. When Lena finally pushed them open, 11 heads swiveled in her direction. 11 men in suits that cost more than her rent. 11 pairs of eyes that took in her cheap blazer, her drugstore lipstick, her trembling hands. And then the 12th. He sat at the far end of the table, not at the head oddly enough, but slightly off-center, leaning back in his chair like a man who had already decided how the meeting would end before it began. Black suit, white shirt, no tie, a jaw cut from granite, eyes the color of storm clouds. Ronan Moratini. He didn't stand, he didn't smile, he didn't even nod. He just looked at her. Miss Carter. His voice was low, controlled. The kind of voice that didn't need to raise itself to fill a room. You're 4 minutes late, Lena swallowed. Her throat was sandpaper. Sir, I was told 7:45 and it's only 7:49. The clock on the wall confirmed it. Lena felt her face burn. Sit down. She sat. The chair he'd indicated was directly across from him. Not at his side. Not buried among the other executives. Directly across like a defendant facing a judge. Ronan didn't speak for a long moment. He simply stared at her. His fingers steepled, his expression unreadable. Then finally, tell me, Miss Carter, why are you here? I'm sorry. Why are you here? Lena's mouth opened, then closed. Around the table, the other men were watching her like she was an animal being tested in a laboratory. I was hired, sir, as a junior analyst. I was told I'd be working under Mr. Hendricks in the acquisitions division, and that's what you were told? Ronan tilted his head. I asked why you're here. She didn't understand the question. And he could see that she didn't understand the question. And he was enjoying it. Because I worked for it, Lena said finally, lifting her chin. Because I graduated top of my class. Because I survived 2 internships at firms that don't even pay their interns. Because I deserve to be here, Mr. Moratini. Something flickered across his face. Not quite a smile, not quite anything. Deserve. He repeated the word like he was tasting it. What an interesting choice. The man to Ronan's left, balding, sweaty mid-50s, cleared his throat. Ronan, perhaps we should move on to the quarterly. We'll move on, Hendricks, when I decide we move on. Hendricks shut up so fast, Lena heard his teeth click. Ronan's eyes never left her. Miss Carter, do you know what we do here at Moratini Holdings? Acquisitions, sir. Real estate primarily. Some private equity. A small portfolio and that's the website answer. Sir, Cho. Anyone with a phone can recite that. I'm asking what we do. Lena's hands were shaking under the table. She pressed them flat against her knees. I don't know how to answer that, sir. Honest, good. He leaned forward just slightly. Then let me explain it to you. We acquire what we want. We hold what we acquire. And we don't return things, Miss Carter. Not properties, not contracts, not people. Once something belongs to Moratini Holdings, it stays. The room felt 20 degrees colder. Lena tried to laugh. It came out as a cough. That's a very dramatic way of describing real estate, sir. For the first time, Ronan smiled. It was not a kind smile. Yes, he said softly, it is. The meeting lasted 93 minutes. Lena counted every second. She didn't speak again unless spoken to. She didn't drink her water. She didn't even let her eyes wander because every time she so much as glanced in Ronan's direction, she found him already watching her, always watching her. And then it happened. It was during the discussion of a property in the Hamptons. Hendricks was droning through projections. Ronan had finally looked away, and Lena allowed herself one small, exhausted exhale. She let her shoulders drop. She let her gaze drift. She didn't mean to look. She really, truly didn't. But her eyes tired, overwhelmed, desperate for somewhere to land that wasn't another pair of judging eyes drifted downward across the table, past Ronan's chest, past his belt, toward his lap. And she saw it, the unmistakable outline, pressing against the fabric of his expensive black trousers. Right there, in the middle of a boardroom meeting, Ronan Moratini was Lena's eyes snapped back up. Too late, he was watching her again. And this time the corner of his mouth had curled into something that wasn't quite a smile and wasn't quite anything safe. She looked at her notepad. She tried to focus. She wrote a word. She didn't know what the word was. Her hand was shaking too badly. Don't look again. Don't look again. Don't look again. She didn't. For exactly 4 minutes. And then God help her, she did. It was an accident. It was. She had been trying to look at the projector screen behind him, and her gaze had to pass through him to get there, and her eyes betrayed her, dropping again just for a half second, just long enough to confirm what she had already seen, just long enough to Miss Carter. The room went silent. Lena looked up. Ronan was staring at her, not with anger, not with embarrassment, with something far, far worse. Amusement. Yes, sir. Her voice came out as a whisper. Why? He said slowly, deliberately, savoring every syllable. Can't you stop staring at the bulge in my pants? Time stopped. Lena heard her own heartbeat in her ears. She heard a man at the end of the table choke on his coffee. She heard Hendricks make a small, strangled noise that might have been the start of a word he immediately abandoned. She wanted to die. She wanted the floor to open up and swallow her whole. She wanted to evaporate into the recycled office air and never exist again. Sir, I wasn't. You were? I wasn't. I swear I was looking at the screen behind. Miss Carter. His voice dropped lower, quieter, somehow more terrifying. I don't tolerate dishonesty. Lena's eyes filled with tears. She blinked them back ferociously. Mr. Moratini, I sincerely apologize if my eyeline gave the wrong impression. I would never. Stand up. Sir, stand up. Slowly on legs that didn't feel like her own, Lena rose to her feet. Ronan gestured to the door. Everyone out. 11 men froze. I'm sorry, Hendricks said weakly. Ronan, we still have to. Out. Hendricks didn't ask twice. None of them did. Within 30 seconds, the boardroom had emptied, and Lena Carter was alone with the most dangerous man in Manhattan. She had been at Moratini Holdings for 1 hour and 47 minutes, and she was already in a nightmare. Sit down, Miss Carter. She sat. Ronan didn't move. He just watched her from across the long, empty table. His tie, or rather the absence of one, the open collar of his shirt, the slow patience in his eyes. He had all the time in the world. She had none. Mr. Moratini, she began, her voice barely steady, I am so deeply, deeply sorry. What just happened? What you think happened? I assure you it was not what you... Stop. She stopped. I'm not angry, Miss Carter. You're not. No. He tilted his head. I'm curious. Curious? You're an interesting woman. He stood up slowly, walked around the table, and took the seat directly beside her. Not across, beside. 3 feet away, then 2, then 1. Smart, ambitious, hungry. The kind of woman who claws her way out of nothing and convinces herself the climb was hers. It was mine, sir. Was it? Yes. Yes, of course it was. Ronan smiled again. That same not quite smile. Tell me, Miss Carter, how many other firms offered you a position before us? Lena hesitated. I had several interviews. How many offers? 1. Just 1, from Moratini Holdings. A starting salary of $130,000 plus benefits, plus a relocation stipend, plus a signing bonus you didn't even ask for. From the most exclusive private holding company in New York. Offered to a 24-year-old girl with no connections, no family money, and no industry references. He paused. Did you ever wonder why Lena's blood went cold. Because I earned it. Did you? What are you saying, Mr. Moratini? He didn't answer her directly. Instead, he reached into the inside pocket of his suit jacket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. He set it on the table between them. He smoothed it with the flat of his hand. This is your hiring file, Miss Carter. Okay. It was approved by me, personally, 3 weeks before your final interview. Lena stared at the paper, then at him, then at the paper again. That's not possible. I had 3 rounds of interviews. I met with the panel. I met with the VP of Analytics. You met with people I told to meet with you. The room tilted. What? There was no panel review, Miss Carter. There was no competitive selection. The other applicants, the ones whose resumes you saw in the waiting room, they were paid actors. The interview questions were designed by me. The tough panel that grilled you on case studies, those were my employees instructed to test you on the specific things I wanted to see. No, Lena whispered. No, you were never competing for this job, Miss Carter. Stop it. You were the only candidate. Stop it. Her voice cracked through the empty boardroom. She was on her feet now, her chair scraping back her hands, trembling, her eyes wild. Why are you saying this? Why would you do this? Why would anyone do this? I don't even know you. I'd never even seen your face before today. Why would you? Sit down, Miss Carter. No. Sit down. There was something in his voice, not loud, not aggressive, but absolute, that made her knees give out. She sat. Ronan watched her expressionless. I saw you, he said, quietly, 2 years ago, at a charity benefit at the plaza. You were there as a +1 for someone whose name I don't remember and whose face I never bothered to learn. You were wearing a black dress, your hair was up, you spilled champagne on a senator's wife and apologized like the world was ending. Lena couldn't breathe. I remember everything about that night, Miss Carter. The way you laughed, the way you walked, the way you carried yourself like a woman who didn't yet know what she was worth. His eyes burned into hers. I decided that night that one day you would work for me. And what I decide, Miss Carter, comes true. Always. You're insane. I'm thorough. This is illegal. This is harassment. This is fraud. This is a job offer that you have already accepted. I'll quit. You won't. Watch me. She stood up. She grabbed her portfolio. She turned for the door. Miss Carter? She didn't stop. Your mother. She froze. Your mother in Akron, Ohio, the one who works 2 shifts at the diner on Market Street, the one who sold her wedding ring last summer to help with your apartment deposit, the one whose mortgage is 62 days past due. Lena turned around slowly. Her hand was on the door. Her eyes were wide. How do you? I bought her debt yesterday morning. The portfolio slipped from Lena's fingers and hit the floor. Ronan didn't smile this time. He didn't have to. Sit down, Miss Carter, he said softly. We have a great deal to discuss. And Lena Legg's shaking mind, reeling, every plan and dream and certainty she'd ever held in her hands now crumbling to dust around her feet, sat back down. She didn't know it yet, but the contract he was about to slide across the table would change her life forever. And she didn't know it yet, but the most terrifying part wasn't what Ronan Moratini wanted from her. It was that somewhere deep down, somewhere she would never ever admit out loud, a part of her wanted it too. The contract was 37 pages long. Lena stared at it without seeing it. Her eyes moved across the words, but her brain refused to process them. Her ears were ringing, her hands were numb, somewhere far away in a part of her mind that still belonged to the woman who had walked into this building an hour ago. She could hear herself screaming, but on the outside she was perfectly still. "Take your time, Miss Carter." Ronan's voice was gentle now, almost kind. That was the worst part. He could afford to be kind. He had already won. "You bought my mother's mortgage," Lena whispered. "I did." "Why, Mom?" "Because I needed leverage and you needed motivation." "That's not motivation. That's blackmail. It's a negotiation. You're holding my mother's house hostage, Mr. Moratini." "I'm holding nothing, Miss Carter. The mortgage is current. Your mother knows nothing. She will receive a letter next week informing her that an anonymous benefactor has paid her debt in full." He paused. "Or alternatively, she will receive a letter informing her that her note has been called in and her home will be foreclosed within 90 days. The choice is yours." "You're a monster." "I'm a businessman. There's a difference." "Is there?" Lena's eyes finally landed on the first paragraph of the contract. The words began to swim into focus. "Personal Services Agreement, Ursa, between Ronan A. Moratini, hereinafter referred to as Principal, and Helena J. Carter, hereinafter referred to as Companion." Companion. Her stomach turned over. "What is this?" she whispered. What am I looking at?" "It's a contract." "For what?" "For us." "There is no us." "There will be." Lena pushed the papers away from her like they had burned her fingers. "I'm not signing this." "You haven't read it yet." "I don't need to read it. I'm not selling myself, Mr. Moratini. I'm not some woman you can buy with a mortgage and a job title. I have a degree. I have a future. You have nothing, Miss Carter." The words landed like a fist. "Excuse me." He stood up, walked to the window, stood with his back to her, his hands clasped behind him. "You have a one-bedroom apartment in Bushwick that you cannot afford. You have $84,000 in student loan debt at 6.25% interest. You have a mother who has not been to a doctor in 3 years because she cannot afford the copay. You have a younger brother who was rejected from his dream school last spring because you couldn't co-sign his loans. You have a savings account with $1,172 in it, and you have until this morning exactly one job offer in your entire professional life." He turned around. "Now tell me again, what do you have, Miss Carter?" Lena's eyes filled with tears, real ones this time, the kind she couldn't blink back. "You don't get to do that," she said, her voice breaking. "You don't get to know all of that and use it against me. That's not power, Mr. Moratini. That's cruelty. It's reality. It's evil. It's the world, Miss Carter. I didn't make it this way. I just learned to win in it." She wiped her cheek with the back of her hand, furious at herself for crying, furious at him for watching. "Why me?" she whispered. "Of all the women in New York, of all the women in the world, why me? I'm nobody. I'm nothing. I spilled champagne on a senator's wife 2 years ago at a party I shouldn't even have been at. Why am I sitting here? Why is my mother's mortgage in your hands? Why are you doing this to me?" For the first time, something in Ronan Moratini's face shifted. It wasn't softness. It wasn't tenderness. But it was something. "Because you didn't see me, Miss Carter." "What?" "That night, at the plaza. Every other woman in that room saw me. Every single one. They knew who I was, what I was worth, what I could give them. They positioned themselves near me. They laughed too loudly when I passed. They dropped their napkins to make me bend down." His jaw tightened. "And you walked right by me, 3 times. You didn't even glance in my direction." Lena stared at him. "That's it. That's why." "That's enough. You're destroying my life because I didn't flirt with you at a charity gala. I'm offering you a life because you were the first woman in 15 years who didn't want something from me before I even spoke. That's not love, Mr. Moratini. That's not even attraction. That's an ego wound." His eyes flashed. For a half second, she saw the dangerous thing under the suit. The thing that had built Moritini Holdings from nothing. The thing that had reportedly put 3 rival CEOs into early retirement and 1 into an early grave. Then it was gone, locked back behind his polished surface. Read the contract, Miss Carter. No. Read it. I said no. Then I'll summarize it for you. He sat back down. He folded his hands. He looked at her with an expression that was somehow both intimate and clinical, like a doctor preparing to deliver a terminal diagnosis. You will work at Moritini Holdings as a junior analyst. Your duties will be real, your salary will be real, and your performance reviews will be honest. You will receive every promotion you earn on merit and only on merit. Within 3 years, you will be the youngest vice president this firm has ever had. That part of your life will be yours, untouched. And in exchange, you will be mine, Miss Carter. She laughed. It was an ugly sound. Yours. 3 nights a week, dinners, events, travel. You will appear on my arm when I require you to. You will sleep in my bed when I require it of you. You will not date anyone else. You will not be photographed with anyone else. And you will not, under any circumstances, fall in love with anyone else. That's it. Her voice was rising. That's all? You just want a girlfriend you can rent like a car. I want you, Miss Carter. You want a doll. I want a partner who knows what I am and chooses to stay. Chooses? Lena laughed again, sharper this time. You're holding my mother's house. You're holding my career. You're holding my brother's future. And you're telling me I have a choice. You always have a choice. You can walk out of this room right now. The mortgage will be called in by Friday. Your mother will be in foreclosure by August. You will be unemployed in this industry forever because I will personally make certain of it. But you can walk out, Miss Carter. The door is right there. He gestured to it. She didn't move. That's what I thought, he said softly. Lena closed her eyes. She thought about her mother. She thought about the wedding ring. She thought about the diner on Market Street and the way her mother's feet swelled at the end of every double shift. She thought about her brother, 18 years old, working construction with a rejection letter from Cornell taped to his bedroom mirror like a badge. She thought about herself. The girl who had clawed her way out of nothing. The girl who apparently had never clawed at all. What if I refuse, she said quietly. Not the mortgage, not the job. The other part. What if I sign for the salary, but I refuse to be your companion? Then you don't sign at all, Miss Carter. The contract is one document. That's coercion. That's negotiation. There has to be another way. There is. You walk out the door. She opened her eyes. He was watching her, patient, unmoving. A man who had already calculated every possible answer she could give and prepared for each one. How long, she whispered. How long does this contract last? 3 years. 3 years. With an option to renew. To renew. She almost laughed. You're going to make me sign a 3-year exclusivity contract to be your thing, and then you're going to ask me to renew it like a magazine subscription. I'm hoping, he said quietly, that by the end of 3 years you won't want it to end. The room went still. Lena looked at him. Really looked at him. Past the suit, past the power, past the terrifying calm of a man who had built an empire on his ability to remain unmoved. And for one long, uncomfortable moment, she saw something underneath. Not love. He didn't know her well enough for love. But want. Real, raw, unmistakable want. The kind of want that didn't make sense. The kind of want that made powerful men do stupid things. The kind of want that scared her not because of what it was, but because of what part of her, some buried traitorous part of her, liked being wanted that much. She pushed the feeling down so hard she almost choked on it. I need to think, she said. Of course. I need to leave this building. You can leave whenever you want. And the contract will be in your apartment when you arrive home tonight. You have until Friday morning at 9 a.m. to return it signed or unsigned. After that, my offer is rescinded permanently, your mother's mortgage is called, and your name is blacklisted in finance from Boston to San Francisco. He stood up. He buttoned his jacket. Do we understand each other, Miss Carter? Yes, she whispered. Good. He walked to the door. He paused with his hand on the handle. He turned back. And Miss Carter, yes. I meant what I said earlier about the staring. Her face flamed. "I'm not angry. I'm not even surprised." His eyes met hers, and for the first time that morning, she saw the smile reach them. "I'm flattered." He left. Lena sat alone in the empty boardroom for a very, very long time. She made it to the lobby before her legs gave out. She didn't remember the elevator. She didn't remember the receptionist's polite goodbye. She didn't remember pushing through the revolving doors or stepping onto the sidewalk or wandering days 3 full blocks before she realized she was walking the wrong way. She just remembered the ringing in her ears and the words on a loop again and again and again. "Why can't you stop staring at the bulge in my pants?" She found a bench. She sat. She put her face in her hands. And for the first time since she was 9 years old, and her father had walked out the front door with a suitcase, Lena Carter cried in public. She cried because she was humiliated. She cried because she was trapped. She cried because she had spent every waking hour of her life building a future that had been quietly, meticulously, terrifyingly built for her by a stranger. But mostly she cried because of the ugly, traitorous thing pulsing in her chest that she couldn't name. The thing that wanted to go back upstairs. The thing that wanted to know what happened next. The thing that whispered in a voice she didn't recognize as her own. Maybe it wouldn't be so bad. She slapped her own cheek. Hard. A man walking a dog stared at her like she'd lost her mind. She had. She really truly had. She pulled out her phone with shaking fingers and called her best friend Maya 3 states away. "Lena, it's 7 in the morning. What's wrong?" "I think I just got a job." "That's amazing. Why are you crying?" "Maya," Lena whispered, "I need you to listen to me. I need you to listen to every word and not interrupt. Because I think something terrible just happened, and I think I'm about to do something even more terrible, and I need someone to hear it before I lose my nerve." "Lena, you're scaring me. What happened?" So she told her, not all of it, not the contract, not the bulge, not the way her body had reacted to a man whose voice had said her name like he already owned it. Just the broad outlines, the fake hiring process, the mortgage, the leverage. Maya was quiet for a long time. "Lena," she said finally, "you need to call the police." "I can't." "Lena." "I can't, Maya. He's Ronan Moratini. The police aren't going to do anything. He has a senator on his speed dial. He has a former district attorney on his board. He has lawyers who eat federal prosecutors for breakfast. If I go to the police, my mother loses her house tomorrow, and I never work in finance again." "Then go to a journalist. Go to the Times. Go to..." "And say what?" "That a man bought my mother's mortgage. It's not illegal to buy a mortgage, Maya. He hasn't done anything illegal yet. He hasn't even touched me. He's blackmailing you. He's positioning. There's a difference. He's careful. He's so careful, Maya. Every single thing he said today was designed to be deniable. If I went to a court right now, my word against his, who do you think the judge would believe?" Maya was silent. "Yeah," Lena whispered. "That's what I thought." "So what are you going to do?" Lena looked up at the sky. It was cloudless, beautiful and different. "I'm going to go home," she said, "and I'm going to read the contract. And then I'm going to figure out how to beat him." "Lena, he thinks he knows me, Maya. He thinks he's spent 2 years studying me. He thinks he's accounted for every variable." Her hand stopped shaking, slowly, deliberately. "But he made one mistake." "What?" He showed me his hand. She hung up before Maya could answer. The contract was as promised, waiting for her when she arrived at her apartment that evening. It had been delivered by a man in a black suit who did not speak. He simply handed her the envelope, nodded once, and disappeared into the elevator before she had even closed her door. Lena set the envelope on her kitchen counter. She stared at it for an hour. She made herself a cup of tea she didn't drink. She paced. She sat. She paced again. She picked up her phone 3 times to call her mother and put it down 3 times. She couldn't say a word. Not yet. Maybe not ever. When she finally opened the envelope, the first thing that fell out wasn't the contract. It was a small, square, black velvet box. Lena's blood ran cold. She opened it. Inside, nestled in white silk, was a key. Plain, heavy, unmarked. The kind of key that didn't go to an apartment or an office or anything an ordinary person owned. There was a note beneath it. Handwritten. Black ink. Sharp letters. Miss Carter. This key opens a door at 432 Park Avenue, apartment 78A. It will be yours for the duration of our agreement. Move in when you sign, not before. One more thing. Look in the second envelope. Her hand shook. She reached back into the package. There was indeed a second envelope. Smaller, sealed. She tore it open. Inside was a single photograph of her, asleep, in her bed, in this apartment, taken by the date stamp at the bottom 3 nights ago. Lena dropped the photograph. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She walked very slowly to her front door, locked. Every lock slid the chain, propped a chair under the handle. And then finally, in the silence of her tiny Brooklyn apartment, she did the only thing left to do. She picked up the contract, and she began to read. She read the contract 3 times. The first time she read it for the words. The second time she read it for the loopholes. The third time she read it for the truth, the things hidden between the clauses, the spaces between the sentences, the silences that screamed louder than the print. By midnight, Lena Carter knew 2 things with absolute certainty. The first, Ronan Moratini was without question the most calculating human being she had ever encountered. The second, he had somewhere in the 3rd paragraph of section 11 made a mistake. It was small. It was almost invisible. It was the kind of mistake only someone who had read the contract 3 times in a row with shaking hands and a photograph of herself sleeping, lying face down on the kitchen counter, would ever notice. But it was there, and it changed everything. She didn't sleep that night. She didn't even try. By 4 in the morning, she was sitting on her kitchen floor with her laptop open, the contract spread out in front of her, and a yellow legal pad covered in her own handwriting. She had drawn a single word at the top of the page in capital letters and underlined it twice. Leverage. He had hers. He had her mother's mortgage and her brother's future and her own career, and even apparently the lock on her bedroom door. He had photographs of her sleeping. He had been watching her, planning for her building cages around her for 2 full years. But Ronan Moratini, for all his money and all his power and all his terrifying patience, had one weakness. He wanted her. Not the abstract idea of her, not a body, not a girlfriend, her. The specific, particular, irreplaceable her. If he had only wanted a beautiful woman to put on his arm, he could have hired one for $1,000 an hour without ever leaving his office. If he had only wanted control, he could have controlled 100 women easier and more disposable than Lena Carter. But he had spent 2 years watching her. He had bought her mother's mortgage. He had built her a fake job and a fake life in a fake apartment on the 78th floor of one of the most expensive buildings in Manhattan. He didn't want a woman. He wanted her. And that meant somewhere underneath all his calculation, all his ice, all his terrifying composure, he was vulnerable. She just had to find the crack. She was still on the floor at 6 in the morning when her phone rang. It was a number she didn't recognize. She let it ring 4 times. Then she answered. Miss Carter? His voice. Of course it was his voice. It's 6 in the morning, Mr. Moratini. You're awake. How do you know? Because the lights in your kitchen have been on for the last 10 hours. Lena's eyes flew to her window. Are you watching me right now? I'm not, but someone is. Stop it. I'm being honest with you, Miss Carter. You said honesty mattered to you. I'm trying to give it to you. You think this is honesty? Her voice rose. You think telling me you have a man with binoculars staring into my apartment is honest. I think pretending I don't would be a worse betrayal. She wanted to throw the phone across the room. She gripped it tighter instead. Why are you calling me Mr. Moratini? Because you have a question. I have 100 questions. You have one that matters. Lena was silent for a long moment. He was right. Damn him. He was right. Section 11, she said finally. Paragraph 3. Yes. You wrote that the contract becomes void if you ever, quote, compel intimacy through coercion or force. I did. Why? He didn't answer immediately. She could hear him breathing. Slow, steady. The breathing of a man who had all the time in the world. Because I'm not a rapist, Miss Carter. You're a blackmailer. I'm a man who knows the difference between submission and surrender. Submission is what you do when you have no choice. Surrender is what you do when you choose to stop fighting. His voice dropped lower. I don't want your submission, Miss Carter. I never did. I want your surrender. What's the difference in practice? In practice, it means I will never lay a finger on you against your will. Not once, not ever. The contract obligates you to be my companion in public, to be photographed with me, to attend events, to sleep in the apartment I provide. It does not anywhere obligate you to share my bed." Lena's heart stopped. "What?" "Read it again, Miss Carter. The word intimacy appears once. The word sex does not appear at all. The word consummation does not appear at all. You will live in my building. You will appear on my arm. You will play the role I require in public. But what happens behind closed doors is and always will be your choice." "That's—" She was shaking again. "That's not what you implied yesterday." "I implied what I needed to imply to make you read the contract. You manipulated me. I gave you fear. Now I'm giving you the truth." "Why?" "Because I want you to come to me, Miss Carter, eventually, on your own, without the leverage, without the contract, without the fear. I want you to walk into my bedroom one night 3 months from now or 3 years from now, and I want it to be because you decided, not because I made you." "Then why the contract at all?" "Because if I gave you a choice this morning, a real choice, a clean choice, you would have walked out. You would have gone home. You would have cried. You would have decided I was a monster and I would never have seen you again." His voice was almost soft. "I needed time, Miss Carter. The contract buys me time." "To do what?" "To make you fall in love with me." Lena laughed. She couldn't help it. It came out broken, half hysterical. "You can't be serious." "I am entirely serious. You think I'm going to fall in love with the man who blackmailed me into signing a 3-year contract with a velvet box and a photograph of me sleeping in my own bed? I think you'll fall in love with the man you discover behind all of that, yes. And what if I don't? Then in 3 years, you will walk away with a fully paid off mortgage, a vice president title, a bank account that will never need replenishing, and the freedom to never see my face again. I will not stop you. I will not pursue you. I will not call. That too is in the contract. Section 19, paragraph 2. You're insane. I'm in love with you, Miss Carter. There's a difference. You don't know me. I know you better than anyone alive. That's not love. That's surveillance. It's both. The honesty of that answer, the absolute unflinching honesty of it, shut her up. She sat on her kitchen floor, the legal pad in her lap, the rising sun bleeding gray light through her window, and she realized something that terrified her more than anything else he had said. He wasn't lying. He genuinely believed every word of it. Ronan Moratini was not a man playing a game. He was a man who had decided 2 years ago at a charity gala that Lena Carter was the only woman he would ever want, and he was now executing that decision with the same ruthless, methodical precision he used to acquire skyscrapers. She was not his target. She was his project. And in some twisted, impossible, deeply broken corner of his mind, he believed he was doing this for her. I need to ask you something, she said quietly. Anything. The photograph. Yes. Was that a threat? No. Then what was it? He was silent for a long moment. It was a confession. A confession. I had it taken 3 nights ago, Miss Carter. I have looked at it every morning since. I included it in the envelope because I wanted you to know what I am. I wanted you to know what I'm capable of. I wanted you to know that I have already crossed lines I cannot uncross. His voice was rough now. If you sign this contract, you are signing it knowing exactly who I am. Not the businessman, not the negotiator. The man, the full, ugly, unredeemed man. I will not lie to you about him. I will not pretend he isn't there. He is the price. Lena's throat closed. And if I don't sign, then I will burn the photograph tonight. You will never hear from me again. Your mother's mortgage will be paid off anonymously by a charity in 2 weeks. Your brother will receive a full-ride scholarship to Cornell next month from a foundation he has never heard of. And you, Miss Carter, will go on with your life in this apartment, in this city, never knowing how close you came. The world stopped. What? You heard me. You're saying, if I refuse, you'll just let me go. I'm saying I love you, Miss Carter, and love that requires a hostage isn't love. It's something else. Then why? She was crying now and she didn't know when she had started. Then why the threats yesterday? Why the mortgage? Why any of it? Because I had to know. Know what? Know if you were the woman I thought you were. I don't understand. If you had walked out of that boardroom yesterday, Miss Carter, if you had told me to go to hell, if you had spit in my face, if you had refused to even look at the contract, I would have known. I would have known you were stronger than I was. I would have let you go. He paused. But you didn't walk out. You sat down, you read the file, you came home, you opened the envelope, and right now at 6 in the morning, you are sitting on your kitchen floor with a legal pad and a question you can't answer. How do you? I told you, someone is watching. She wanted to scream. That's not love, Mr. Moratini. That's I kiss you. I know. I know exactly what it is. I am not a man who lies to himself, Miss Carter. I am offering you a cage, a beautiful one, a gilded one, a cage where you will be safer and richer and more powerful than you have ever been. But a cage. His voice was barely above a whisper now. And you have until Friday at 9 to decide if you want to step inside. She hung up. She didn't think about it. She didn't decide to. Her hand just moved on its own and the call ended and the silence of her apartment crashed down around her like a building collapsing. She put her head between her knees and tried to breathe. She thought about her mother. She thought about her brother. She thought about the $84,000 in student loans and the $1,172 in her savings account. She thought about Ronan Moratini saying, I love you like it was a fact instead of a feeling. She thought about the part of herself, the small, traitorous, terrifying part that had felt something dangerously close to flattered when he said it. And then because she was Lena Carter, and she had been clawing her way out of corners since she was 9 years old, she stood up. She wiped her face. She washed her hands. She made coffee, and she made a decision. She wasn't going to sign the contract. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But she wasn't going to walk away either. She was going to do something neither of them had planned for. She was going to play. By 8 that morning, Lena was dressed in the only outfit she owned that had ever made her feel powerful. A charcoal pantsuit she'd bought for her grandmother's funeral, the only thing in her closet that fit like armor. She tied her hair back. She put on the lipstick she'd been saving for a job interview that apparently had never been real. She put the contract in her bag, unsigned. She put the photograph in her bag too, and the velvet box, and the key, and the note. Then she walked out of her apartment down 4 flights of stairs into the New York morning and got in a cab. Where to? 5th Avenue and 57th. The driver pulled into traffic. Lena's heart was pounding. Her hands were ice cold. She wasn't going to her job today. She wasn't going to Ronan Moratini's office. She was going to his lawyer. It had taken her until 4 a.m. to find the name. Buried in the contract's footnotes attached to a notarization stamp was a name she recognized from a Wall Street Journal profile she'd read 2 years ago. Eleanor Reyes, senior partner at one of the most prestigious firms in the city. The woman who had drafted Ronan Moratini's prenup before his first marriage and his divorce settlement after his first marriage, and apparently every contract he had signed for the last 12 years. And Eleanor Reyes had a public office, and Eleanor Reyes took walk-in consultations from prospective clients between 8:30 and 9 on Tuesday mornings. Because Eleanor Reyes did not technically work only for Ronan Moratini, Lena was banking everything on a technicality. She arrived at the building at 8:22. She gave her name at the desk. She sat in the waiting area holding her bag in her lap so tightly her fingernails left half moons in the leather. At 8:41, a receptionist called her name. She stood. She walked. She sat across from a woman with silver hair and reading glasses and a face like cut glass. Miss Carter, what can I do for you? Lena took a breath. I'd like to retain you, she said, to represent me in a contract negotiation. Eleanor Reyes raised one eyebrow. I see, what's the contract? Lena pulled it out of her bag. She slid it across the desk. Eleanor Reyes looked at the cover page. She looked at Lena. She looked at the cover page again. She set down her pen. Miss Carter, she said carefully, do you understand who drafted this document? I do. Do you understand, she said even more carefully, that I am the attorney who drafted this document? I do. Then you must also understand that I cannot represent you in any matter involving Mr. Moratini. It would be a conflict of interest. I'm not asking you to represent me against him. Then what are you asking? Lena leaned forward. Her hands were no longer cold. I'm asking you to represent me to him. Eleanor Reyes stared at her. Excuse me. You drafted this contract for him. You know exactly what's in it, and exactly what isn't. You know every clause, every protection, every loophole, and you know better than anyone in this city what Ronan Moratini will and will not agree to. Yes. Then I want you to draft a counteroffer. A counteroffer. Yes. To Mr. Moratini's contract. Yes. On behalf of the woman he is trying to put under contract. Yes. Eleanor Reyes looked at her for a very, very long time. Then slowly the corner of her mouth turned up. Miss Carter, she said softly, I have been waiting for someone to walk into my office and ask me that question for 23 years. Lena's heart stopped. What does that mean? Eleanor Reyes leaned back in her chair. She took off her reading glasses. She folded them carefully on the desk. It means, she said, that you are not the first woman Ronan Moratini has tried to put under contract. The room tilted. Lena gripped the arms of her chair. What? I drafted 3 before yours, Miss Carter. 3 different women, 3 different files, 3 different velvet boxes. Eleanor Reyes's eyes were sharp, and not one of them ever walked into my office. Not one of them ever asked me a single question. Every single one of them signed. Lena couldn't breathe. What happened to them? Eleanor Reyes did not blink. That, Miss Carter, is a very interesting question. What happened to them, Ms. Reyes? Eleanor Reyes folded her hands on the desk. Lena watched the woman's wedding ring catch the light. It was a thin gold band, old, the kind of ring that had survived something. The first one, Eleanor said quietly, was a violinist, 26 years old, from Boston. She signed the contract 12 years ago. And she married him 18 months later. Lena blinked. She what? She married him, Miss Carter, by her own choice, against my advice, against her family's advice, against the advice of every reasonable person in her life. She walked into a courthouse on a Tuesday in March and signed her name next to his. Where is she now? She's dead. The word landed like a brick. Dead. 6 years ago, a car accident on the Long Island Expressway. She was driving alone at 2 in the morning in the rain on a stretch of road she had no reason to be on. The official ruling was driver error. And the unofficial ruling, Eleanor Reyes did not answer that. Lena's mouth had gone dry. The second one, a surgeon from Chicago. She signed 9 years ago. She lasted 11 months. What does lasted mean? It means she walked out, Miss Carter. She broke the contract. She returned the key. She returned the apartment. She returned the credit cards, and she went home to Chicago. And then she lost her hospital privileges within 6 weeks. A patient she had never met filed a malpractice complaint. The complaint was eventually dismissed, but by then the damage was done. She works at a clinic in rural Wisconsin now, Miss Carter. She makes $42,000 a year. She used to be one of the top cardiothoracic surgeons in the Midwest. Lena's hands started shaking again. And the third, Eleanor Reyes paused for a long moment. The third one is the reason I'm telling you any of this. Why? Because the third one was my goddaughter. Lena's heart stopped. What? Her name was Sarah. She was 28. She was the daughter of my college roommate who died of breast cancer when Sarah was 19. I helped raise her. I paid for her wedding to a man who turned out to be a disaster. I helped her through the divorce. And when she came to my office 4 years ago and told me she had met a man named Ronan Moratini, I told her I begged her, Miss Carter, not to take his calls. What happened to her? She signed. And then and then nothing. That's the worst part. She signed the contract. She lived in the apartment. She attended his events. And then one morning, 6 months in, she vanished. Vanished. She left. She left the apartment. She left the contract. She left a one-line note on the kitchen counter that said, I can't. And she got on a plane and she flew home to Charleston and she never spoke to him again. That's good, isn't it? She got out. Eleanor Reyes looked at Lena with eyes that had seen too many things. She got out. Yes, she lives in a small house. She works at a public library. She is alive and she is free, and she will never, ever speak about what happened in that apartment to anyone, including me. Eleanor's voice was almost a whisper. But she has not been on a single date in 4 years, Miss Carter. She does not leave her house after dark. She has 3 deadbolts on her front door and a panic button by her chin. The man who blackmailed her did not destroy her, but he broke something inside her that has not in 4 years ever grown back. The room was so silent Lena could hear the second hand on Eleanor's desk clock. "Why are you telling me this?" Lena finally asked. "Because every contract I have drafted for that man has had a clause in it that I added without his knowledge. A clause he has never read carefully because he assumes I work for him." "What clause?" Eleanor opened a drawer. She pulled out a copy of Lena's contract, a copy Lena had never given her. The pages were already flagged with yellow tabs. Section 23, paragraph 7. "Read it." Lena leaned forward. Her eyes scanned the dense legal text. She had read this section the night before. She had read it 3 times. And she realized now, completely missed it. In the event that legal counsel for the companion identifies cause to suspect the principal has engaged in coercive surveillance, intimidation, or third-party harassment of the companion or her family during the term of this agreement, the companion's counsel may at her sole discretion declare the agreement void ab initio. The principal waives all right to contest such declaration. Lena read it again, then again. "Ms. Reyes," she said slowly, "this clause gives you and only you an off-ramp, yes. But it requires legal counsel, specifically counsel I would have to hire, counsel who would have to find evidence of his surveillance." "Yes. And right now, I have no legal counsel." Eleanor Reyes smiled. For the first time, the smile reached her eyes. "You walked into my office, Miss Carter. You can't represent me. I cannot represent you in a litigation against Ronan Moratini. That is true." She slid a piece of paper across the desk. "I can, however, refer you to a colleague, a very particular colleague, a woman named Patricia Ellsworth, who used to work at this firm, who left under bitter circumstances, and who has spent the last 8 years building the most fearsome contract litigation practice on the Eastern Seaboard. She specializes in clients who cannot, for one reason or another, go through normal channels." Lena looked at the name, Patricia Ellsworth, an address in Tribeca. "How much does she cost?" "For you, nothing." "Why, Pamanagam?" "Because Patricia Ellsworth was Sarah's mother's college roommate. Patricia Ellsworth knew my goddaughter from the day she was born, and Patricia Ellsworth has been waiting 4 years for someone to walk into her office holding a Moratini contract." Lena's hands were trembling again. "You set this up." "I did not set this up, Miss Carter. I have been waiting. There is a difference. Why didn't you go to the police years ago, when you saw what was happening?" Eleanor Reyes laughed. It was a soft, bitter sound. "Miss Carter, I am 68 years old. I have practiced law in this city for 43 years. I have seen what happens to women who go to the police about men like Ronan Moratini. I have represented what happens to those women." Her eyes were sharp now. "Going to the police is what gets you killed on the Long Island Expressway in the rain at 2 in the morning. Going to a courthouse is what gets a malpractice complaint filed against you the next week. The only thing that has ever worked, in my experience, is doing what we are doing right now. Quietly, methodically. Inside the contract he wrote himself." Lena stared at her. "You're going to use his own contract against him. You are going to use his own contract against him, Miss Carter. I am simply going to give you the keys." "Why me? Why now? Why not Sarah 4 years ago?" "Because Sarah didn't ask. None of them asked, Miss Carter. They all just signed. You are the first woman in 12 years who walked into my office before signing." Eleanor leaned forward. "I gave you the same 15-minute appointment I have given every other woman who has come into my waiting room. I do not solicit. I do not warn. If they sign, they sign. But if they ask, Miss Carter, then I help. That's a horrible system. It's the only one I have." Lena closed her eyes. She thought about Sarah in a small house in Charleston with 3 deadbolts. She thought about the violinist on the Long Island Expressway. She thought about the surgeon making $42,000 in rural Wisconsin. And she thought about herself in a charcoal pantsuit sitting in a stranger's office at 8:43 on a Tuesday morning with a contract in her bag and a photograph of herself sleeping in a velvet box containing a key. She opened her eyes. "I'll call Patricia Ellsworth this afternoon." "Good. What do I do until then?" Eleanor Reyes leaned back. "You go home, Miss Carter. You behave normally. You do not contact Mr. Moratini. You do not respond to any communications he sends you. You do not under any circumstances sign that contract. And if he calls, let it ring. And on Friday at 8:59, you will deliver the unsigned contract to his office in person with a single piece of paper attached to it. Patricia and I will draft that paper this afternoon. What will it say? It will say that you are willing to enter into an agreement with Mr. Moratini, but not this one, a different one you draft, with protections he has never agreed to before. He'll never sign it. Eleanor Reyes smiled again, slow, cold, the smile of a woman who had spent 4 decades learning when to wait and when to strike. He will miss Carter, because if he does not sign your version, you walk away. And he has just spent 2 years building his entire emotional life around the assumption that you will not. He'll find another way to trap me, possibly, but by then, Patricia Ellsworth will already have a sealed federal complaint sitting in a drawer with your name on it. And he will know that, because we will tell him. You'd really do that? I have been waiting for 12 years to do that, Miss Carter. Lena left Eleanor Reyes's office at 9:15. By the time she reached the sidewalk, she had already missed 3 calls from Ronan Moratini. She did not return them. She walked 12 blocks north on 5th Avenue. She did not take a cab. She did not take a train. She walked in her grandmother's funeral pantsuit with a contract in her bag until her feet ached and her hands stopped shaking. She thought about her mother. She thought about her brother. She thought about the $1,172 in her checking account. But mostly she thought about a woman she had never met named Sarah in a small house in Charleston with 3 deadbolts on her door. And she thought, not me, not me. Patricia Ellsworth's office did not look like a law office. It looked like an apartment. A loft really on the 4th floor of a converted warehouse in Tribeca with floor-to-ceiling windows and bookshelves that climbed all the way to the rafters, and a woman in her 60s sitting at a desk made of what appeared to be reclaimed barnwood. Patricia Ellsworth did not stand when Lena entered. She did not offer coffee. She did not smile. She looked up from her laptop, took in Lena's face, and said, "Eleanor sent me a text. Sit down." Lena sat. "Show me the contract." Lena pulled it out of her bag. She slid it across the desk. Patricia opened it. She read the first page. She read the second page. She read the third page. Her face did not change. When she finished the entire document, which took her 14 minutes, and which Lena spent in absolute silence, she closed the contract, set her hands on top of it, and looked at Lena with eyes that were terrifyingly calm. "Miss Carter, yes, this contract is the most carefully drafted instrument of psychological coercion I have ever seen in 31 years of practice." Okay, that is not a compliment to its author. That is a warning to you. I understand. I don't think you do. Patricia leaned forward. "Miss Carter, the man who drafted this contract does not love you. He does not want to marry you. He does not want a partner. He wants a project. He has done this 3 times before, and the version he is offering you is in some ways the most dangerous one yet. Why? Because he learned from the others. Section 11, paragraph 3, the consent clause, he didn't have that with Sarah. He added it after Sarah. Section 23, paragraph 7. Eleanor's clause, he doesn't realize is in there. But the version of him that is offering you this contract is a version that has been refined. He has learned that brute force fails. He has learned that pure money fails. So now he is offering you very carefully a contract that looks reasonable. Generous even. He is hoping you will sign it because on paper it appears to give you everything you wanted. It doesn't give me everything I wanted. No, it gives you a version of everything you wanted, where every gift is also a leash. And the longer you wear those leashes, the harder it becomes to remember you ever lived without them. Lena swallowed. What do I do? You're going to do exactly what Eleanor told you, but we're going to add one thing. What? Patricia Ellsworth stood up. She walked to a filing cabinet against the far wall. She unlocked it with a key she wore around her neck on a chain. She pulled out a manila folder. She came back to the desk. She set the folder down between them. Open it. Lena opened it. The first page was a photograph of Ronan Moratini, aged maybe 25, standing in a courtroom, wearing handcuffs. Lena's breath caught. What is this? It is a sealed juvenile arrest record from Queens County, New York, from 1998, for an offense the state of New York agreed 12 years ago to permanently expunge in exchange for a $2 million donation to a victims' rights nonprofit. Patricia's voice was flat. I obtained a copy of this record 9 years ago through means I will not be discussing with you. It is technically illegal for me to possess. It is certainly illegal for me to share. Why are you showing it to me? Because I want you to understand what we are doing, Miss Carter. We are not asking him politely to release you. We are not appealing to his better nature. We are not relying on the kindness of his lawyer or the cleverness of Section 23, that paragraph 7. Then what are we doing? We are giving him a choice. What choice? The choice to sign your version of the contract, or to walk away, or— Patricia's eyes were like glass, or to learn that there exists in a safe deposit box in a bank he does not own and cannot reach a sealed envelope containing a copy of this photograph in a letter that will be delivered to the New York Times and the Manhattan District Attorney simultaneously the moment anything happens to you, or to your mother, or to your brother, or to anyone you have ever loved. The room was very quiet. That's blackmail. That is protection, Miss Carter. There is a difference. He blackmails you to put you in a cage. We blackmail him to keep you out of one. Patricia leaned back. I have been carrying this folder for 9 years. I never had anyone to give it to. I'm giving it to you. Lena looked at the photograph of a much younger Ronan Moratini. He looked angry. He looked human. For the first time in 2 days, he looked like a man instead of a god. She closed the folder. I'll do it. You're sure? I'm sure. Once we send this counter offer, Miss Carter, once we deliver this on Friday morning, there is no going back. He will know we have leverage on him. He will respect it, but he will also hate it. And he will spend the rest of his life looking for a way to get it back. I understand. You will not be safe in the way you imagine. You will be safer than you would have been under his contract, but you will spend the next several years looking over your shoulder. I understand. And one more thing, Miss Carter. Yes, Patricia Ellsworth looked at her with eyes that had seen everything. There is a part of you that wants to sign his contract. Don't lie to me. Don't lie to yourself. I have been doing this for 31 years. I have seen that look on every woman who has ever sat in that chair. The part of you that is flattered. The part of you that is curious. The part of you that wonders what would happen if you said yes. Lena's face burned. Don't apologize. It's human. It's the thing he's counting on. Every successful predator counts on it. Patricia's voice softened just barely. But I need you to understand something. That part of you is not your friend. It is the part of you that he has spent 2 years cultivating, 2 years of watching, 2 years of arranging, 2 years of building a fantasy in your head before he even shook your hand. She paused. You don't love him, Miss Carter. You're not even attracted to him. You are addicted to being seen by him. And the moment you sign that contract, he stops seeing you. Because you will no longer be the woman who walked past him at the plaza. You will be the woman he caught. Lena's eyes filled with tears. How do you know that? Because that is what happened to all three before you. She sat in Patricia Ellsworth's office for another 2 hours. By the time she left, the counter contract was drafted. By the time she got home, her phone had 11 missed calls from Ronan Moratini, 3 voicemails she did not listen to, and a single text message that read simply, "Where are you?" Lena did not reply. She locked her door, she slid the chain. She propped the chair under the handle. And on Friday morning at 8:58, in a charcoal pantsuit and her grandmother's pearl earrings, with Patricia Ellsworth waiting in a town car at the curb and Eleanor Reyes on speed dial, Lena Carter walked into Moratini Holdings to deliver her answer. The receptionist on the 42nd floor recognized her immediately. "Miss Carter, Mr. Moratini is expecting you. Please go right up." Lena did not smile. "Tell him I'll wait here." The receptionist blinked. "I'm sorry. Tell him I'll wait in the lobby. He can come down to me." "Miss Carter, he can come down to me or he can read what I brought in the mail next week. Those are his 2 options. Please pass that along." The receptionist's hand hovered over the phone. "Miss Carter, I really don't think—" "Make the call." She made the call. Lena watched her face. She watched the receptionist's eyes widen, then narrow, then go very carefully blank. She watched her say, "Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'll let her know," into the receiver, in a voice that was an octave higher than it had been a minute before. She hung up. He'll be down in 3 minutes. Thank you. Lena sat in the lobby. She did not take out her phone. She did not look at the elevator. She kept her eyes on the revolving doors at the front of the building, where she could see Patricia Ellsworth's town car idling at the curb, a silhouette in the back seat watching every move that happened on the other side of the glass. She was not alone. She had spent her whole life being alone. Now, finally, on the most important morning of her life, she was not alone. The elevator chimed at exactly 9 o'clock. Ronan Moratini stepped out. He was not in a suit. That was the first thing she noticed. He was in slacks and a sweater, like a man who had been pulled out of his apartment instead of his office. His hair was not perfectly combed. There were dark circles under his eyes. He had been awake all night. So had she. He saw her. He stopped walking. He crossed the lobby slowly, like a man approaching a wild animal. When he reached her, he did not sit. He stood in front of her, hands in his pockets. Lena. Mr. Moratini, you wouldn't take my calls. No. Where were you, with my lawyer? His face did not move, but something behind his eyes did. I see. I doubt that you do, Mr. Moratini. Sit down, he hesitated. In 12 years of running Moratini Holdings, no one had told Ronan Moratini to sit down in his own building. He looked at her for a long moment. Then he sat. Lena reached into her bag. She pulled out the original contract, unsigned. She set it on the small glass table between them. She pulled out the velvet box. She set it next to the contract. She pulled out the photograph of herself sleeping. She set it next to the velvet box. She pulled out a new envelope, thick, heavy, fresh paper. She set it next to the photograph. Ronan looked at the items on the table. He looked at her. What is this? This is my answer. Lena, you will refer to me as Miss Carter. We are not on a first-name basis. We have never been on a first-name basis. We will never be on a first-name basis. His jaw tightened. Miss Carter. Thank you. Her voice was perfectly even. She had practiced this in the mirror at 5 o'clock that morning. I am returning your contract unsigned. I am returning your key. I am returning your photograph. And I am giving you in exchange a different document. You will read it, you will sign it, or you will walk away from this lobby and never speak to me again. Those are your options. Miss Carter, this isn't how this works. It is now. She slid the new envelope across the table. Ronan did not pick it up. What's in it? A counteroffer, drafted by Patricia Ellsworth and Eleanor Reyes. The silence that followed was the loudest silence Lena had ever heard. Ronan's face did not change, but his hand, his right hand resting on his knee, curled into a fist so slowly she could count the seconds. Eleanor. Yes. Eleanor Reyes. Yes. My attorney. Your former attorney as of 9:15 yesterday morning, when she resigned all engagements with Moratini Holdings via certified letter to your general counsel. I assume the letter is sitting on your desk upstairs. You may not have read it yet. He hadn't. She could see it on his face. Miss Carter, I don't know what Eleanor told you. She told me about Sarah. His face did not change, but Lena saw him stop breathing for one full second. She told me about the violinist on the Long Island Expressway. She told me about the surgeon in Wisconsin. She told me about all three of them, Mr. Moratini, every single one, by name, with dates, with outcomes. Miss Carter, those women signed your contract, Mr. Moratini, and every single one of them paid for it. Her voice did not rise. She did not need it to. I will not be the fourth. He was silent. She had imagined 100 reactions from him sitting on her kitchen floor at 4 a.m. Rage, threats, cold surgical calculation. She had imagined him standing up and walking out. She had imagined him pulling out his own phone and making a call that ended Patricia Ellsworth's life. She had not imagined this. He just looked at her, and his eyes were tired. And after a very long time, he said very quietly, how much does she know? Enough. How much, Miss Carter? Enough that if I sign this contract or any contract you ever offer me or any other woman ever again, a sealed envelope sitting in a bank vault that you do not own and cannot reach will be opened. The contents of that envelope will be delivered simultaneously to the New York Times, the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation Field Office in Lower Manhattan. You will know exactly what is in that envelope, Mr. Moratini, because you have spent $2 million in the past 12 years trying to make sure no one ever sees it. The blood drained from his face. It was the first emotion she had ever seen him fail to hide. Queens, he said quietly. Queens. How? That's not your concern, Mr. Moratini. Your concern is what you do in the next 4 minutes. He looked down at the envelope between them. Miss Carter, please, listen to me. I'm listening. I never hurt those women. That's not what I asked. I never hurt them. Sarah lives in a house with 3 deadbolts and a panic button by her bed, Mr. Moratini. The violinist is dead. The surgeon makes $42,000 a year. Whether or not you laid a hand on any of them is frankly the least interesting question in this conversation. Hurt is not the word. Damage is the word. And you have left a great deal of damage behind you. His mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. What does the counteroffer say? Read it. He picked up the envelope. He opened it. He read. She watched his face. She watched the muscle in his jaw work as his eyes moved down the page. She watched a small, tight breath escape him at paragraph 4. She watched him look up at her once sharply at paragraph 9. She watched his hands tighten on the paper at paragraph 13. When he finished, he set the document on the table. He folded his hands. He looked at her like he was seeing her for the first time. You drafted this. Patricia drafted it. I dictated it. You're terminating my contract entirely. Yes. You're refusing to be my companion. Yes. You're rejecting the apartment, the position, the salary, the relocation package, the medical benefits, the equity grant, everything. No, his head tilted. No, I'm keeping the position. What? The junior analyst's position. The salary, the medical benefits, the equity grant. I am keeping all of it because I earned it, Mr. Moratini. Whether or not the hiring process was fabricated, whether or not you bought my mother's mortgage, whether or not you spent 2 years watching me. I earned that job by being good enough that of all the women in New York, you decided to build your trap around me. That is not a flattering reason to be hired, but it is a reason, and I am taking the job. Ronan stared at her. You're taking the job? Yes. On what terms? On the terms in paragraph 15. I report to a different vice president. Not Hendricks, someone you do not personally control. I receive standard performance reviews. I do not appear at any event you attend. I do not enter any room you are in. I do not speak to you, see you, email you, or acknowledge your existence. If we pass in a hallway, you turn around. If we are scheduled in the same meeting, you leave for 3 years. 3 years. At the end of 3 years, I will have built enough of a track record to leave Moratini Holdings and work anywhere I want. At that point, I will resign. You will accept the resignation in writing. You will provide a positive reference, and we will never speak again in this lifetime or the next. And the mortgage. You will release my mother's mortgage by close of business today, anonymously, to a charity that pays it off in full, exactly as you described to me on the phone yesterday morning. My mother will never know my name was attached to it. And your brother. You will not under any circumstances give my brother a scholarship. You will not pay his tuition. You will not interfere with his life in any way. He will go to whichever school he can afford, and he will succeed or fail on his own. That is not negotiable. Why? Because he is mine, Mr. Moratini. Not yours to fix, not yours to ruin, mine. He nodded slowly. And the photograph. Burn it, today, while I am sitting here with me watching. Miss Carter, now Mr. Moratini. He pulled out his phone. He made a call. He spoke for 40 seconds in a voice too low for her to hear. He hung up. It will be done within the hour. I will have the security footage from the apartment that took it sent to your attorney by tomorrow morning. Good. Anything else? Yes, her voice was steady. The man you have watching my apartment. He went very still. What about him? He stops. Today. By noon, if I see him again, if I see his replacement, if I see any indication that you have ever in your life sent another human being to look through my window or follow me down a sidewalk. Patricia opens the envelope. I do not call you first. I do not warn you. I do not give you a chance to apologize. The envelope opens. Are we clear? Yes. Are we clear, Mr. Moratini? Yes, Miss Carter, we are clear. She pulled a pen from her bag. She pushed it across the table. Sign. He looked at the document. He looked at the pen. He looked at her. And for one terrible, electric, impossible moment, Lena Carter saw the man underneath the man. The boy in the Queen's courtroom from 1998. The man who had built an empire and bought a city and burned through 3 women's lives in pursuit of something he could not name. The man who had told her on the phone at 6 in the morning that he loved her. He looked in that moment like someone who was about to lose something. And she thought in the small, traitorous, deeply human corner of her heart that she would carry with her for the rest of her life. If he had asked me like a normal man 2 years ago at a charity gala, I might have said yes. He picked up the pen. He signed. He set the pen down. He pushed the document back toward her. It's done. She picked up the document. She put it in her bag. She stood up. Miss Carter? Yes. May I ask you one question? 1. Was any of it real? She looked at him. She thought about the way her stomach had flipped the first time he said her name. She thought about the part of her that had wanted at 4 in the morning to walk back into his boardroom and let him put his hand on her face. She thought about the photograph and the velvet box and the key to the 78th floor. She thought about Sarah. She thought about a woman in a small house in Charleston with 3 deadbolts and a panic button by her bed. No, Mr. Moratini. His face did not move, but his eyes did. None of it. None of it was real because none of it was mine. You spent 2 years building a version of me in your head. You fell in love with that version. You hired me. You blackmailed me. You photographed me. You tried to put me under contract. And the entire time you were not loving me. You were loving a story about me that you wrote without asking me. The woman you wanted does not exist. She never did. She was a ghost you assembled from a black dress in a charity gala and a night I do not remember because to me, it was not even a night worth remembering. She paused. That is not love, Mr. Moratini. That is theater, and I am not interested in being someone's audience for the rest of my life. He nodded just once. She turned to go. Miss Carter? She stopped. She did not turn around. Yes. For what it's worth. Don't. Please, don't, Mr. Moratini. Whatever it is, don't. You do not get to give me a parting word that I will carry around for the rest of my life. You have taken enough. Let me leave with what is left. He was silent. She walked out of the lobby. She did not look back. She got into the back of Patricia Ellsworth's town car. The car pulled away from the curb. Patricia did not speak. She simply handed Lena a tissue. Lena did not cry until they were 6 blocks away. She stayed at Moratini Holdings for 28 months. She was promoted twice. She received excellent reviews from a vice president named Marcia Donnelly, who never once knew the full story of how Lena had come to work at the firm. Lena passed Ronan Moratini in a hallway exactly 4 times in 28 months. Each time he turned around. Each time she did not. Her mother's mortgage was paid off by an anonymous charity in mid-October of that first year. Her mother cried for 3 days. Lena flew home for Thanksgiving and held her mother's hand at the kitchen table and did not say a single word about how it had happened. Her brother Daniel did not get a scholarship. He went to a state school. He worked nights at a pizza place to pay for it. He graduated with honors 3.5 years later. At his graduation, he hugged Lena so hard he lifted her off the ground, and he whispered into her hair, "I did this myself, sis," and Lena wept into his cheap polyester gown. 28 months in, Lena resigned from Moratini Holdings to take a position at a firm in Boston. The reference letter from Ronan Moratini was his agreed exemplary. He did not call, he did not write, he did not appear. She heard 6 years later that he had married someone else. A woman from Old Money in Connecticut, the daughter of a senator. The wedding photographs in the Times showed a beautiful blonde woman with cold eyes and a tight smile. Lena studied the photograph for a long time and felt nothing. Not jealousy, not regret, not even pity. She felt mostly relief. She married a high school teacher named David when she was 31. They had 2 daughters. She named the older one after her mother and the younger one Sarah, for a woman she had never met in a small house in Charleston, who had taught her without ever knowing it the most important lesson of her life. The lesson was this: the most powerful thing a man could give a woman was not a key or an apartment or a bomb or a contract or even his attention. The most powerful thing a man could give a woman was the chance to walk away. And the most powerful thing a woman could do when offered a cage, no matter how gilded, no matter how flattering, no matter how much of her wanted in some traitorous corner of her heart to step inside, was to say no, and mean it, and leave. Lena Carter walked out of Moratini Holdings on a Tuesday morning in March, 28 months after she had walked in. She never looked back. She never needed to. Because her freedom had never belonged to him. It had always, every single moment, belonged to her. She had only forgotten briefly that it was hers to keep. The end.